Welcome everyone to this class. Welcome to the TradeStation Masterclass. Today we're going to do our technical analysis series, specifically multi-data analysis in charts and radar screen. For those that are new to the TradeStation Masterclass, my name is Jesus Nava. I am the Director of Client Training and Education for TradeStation Securities, and it's a pleasure to be here with all of you to talk a little bit about this particular technology, which is fascinating. We're going to take a look at some of the built-in studies that are part of the TradeStation platform and how you can modify them to be exactly the way you want it. Before we get started, though, let's go through some of the disclosures. Keep in mind that every symbol and idea that I talk about is for educational purposes only, that these are not recommendations of TradeStation. These are just examples, that past historical performance is no guarantee of future results, and that active trading may not be suitable for everyone. For additional information on these disclosures, go to www.tradestation.com/important-information. All right, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about multi-data analysis from a conceptual basis. First, you may add up to 50 unique data sets into a chart using any combination of symbols and any combination of time-based intervals, which is pretty fascinating that you can add up to 50 different symbols, not only different symbols, but if you want to add the same symbol 50 different times, you can do that as well. Every single chart analysis window inside of TradeStation supports up to 50 unique symbols or time frames, if you want to say that as well. Symbols in a chart are assigned a reference number when they're added to the chart. The first symbol in the chart is data 1. The second symbol added is data 2. And the third is data 3, and so on and so on. So this is automatically assigned. You don't even have to worry about it. And it's something that you need to be aware of, because in your analysis of multiple symbols, you're going to want to reference these specific symbols. And the way that you reference that specific symbol is by referencing the data number. So if you have Microsoft on data 1, and then you have Cisco on data 2, you have to call Cisco by its data number. You may not change the data number of a symbol. So in my example, if Microsoft is data 1 and Cisco is data 2, I cannot make Cisco data 1, but you can change the symbol in a data number. So if I go into Microsoft and I change it into Cisco, then Cisco becomes data 1. So something to remember, because a lot of times we are referencing certain data. We write some easy language code that references data 2. And when we look at the chart, data 2 is not the symbol we want. Well, you cannot change the data number, but you can change the number. You can change the symbol that is assigned to the data number. Multi-data analysis is available in Radarscreen only with advanced easy language objects programming. This is important because what we're going to do in charting, which is add symbol, it's not something supported on Radarscreen. Radarscreen, every single row is one symbol. And you cannot say reference row number 1 and row number 2. If you want to combine symbols, that's something that is not possible. It'd be great if you could do that, right? Reference all these rows into an indicator. However, there are some studies that reference multiple symbols, but they use advanced easy language objects programming. We're going to take a look at an example in Radarscreen where you can introduce a separate symbol that is not the symbol in the Radarscreen row. Multi-data charts only work with time-based intervals. Make sure each symbol has enough historical data. So if you're asking yourself, could I do this with maybe a Renko or a Kagi line? Would I be able to create a multi-data chart using volume chart, like tick charts? No, it's not possible. The only way for you to mix symbols together is using time-based charts. And the reason for that, the reason why it's only compatible with not daily, but time-based charts is because you can very easily align the time frames. You know, if it's a minute, you can align all the minutes in the same vertical axis. However, if it's based on price movement or if it's based on volume, every symbol will be different. And in order for us to align a particular tick with another symbol's trading activity, it's impossible with the software that we are supporting at this moment. So just keep in the back of the back of your mind that the only time frame in which you are able to mix symbols together is the time-based interval. So anything from seconds, minutes, daily, weekly, monthly. You may add studies to any symbol on a multi-data chart. These studies can be plotted on bars or on a separate subgraphs. Interesting that when you have a chart window that has multiple symbols, whenever you add a study, you can choose which symbol you want to add that study to. I'll show you where that is. And you may add the same symbol multiple times with different time frames or use different symbols with the same or different time frames. We talked about that a moment ago. Some of the ideas that you can perform, or some of the technical comparisons you can perform, is, for example, relative performance analysis. When you take how one symbol compares to another, it's really easy to do it on a multi-data chart. We want to take a look at an example of that. Percent change chart, how much one symbol has changed compared to the other. You know, relative performance and percent change chart is very similar in that particular. We have correlation analysis. Correlation is how close one symbol resembles the price movement of another. Technical analysis, multi-time frame confirmation. So if you're looking for certain signals to be true on multiple time frames, okay, I see this signal on the 60-minute. Is it showing up on the 30-minute and even smaller time frames? So that's something to take into account. Custom index of symbols. You can bring in a lot of symbols into one study and be able to create your own index, something pretty cool. And let's see, pairs trading. Now, pairs trading, it's tricky that it's here because you just have to be aware what's here. Pairs trading as a spread is something that probably TradeStation does not support. Or even if you want to trade, two stocks as a pair, you can do that using individual trades, but we don't facilitate pairs trading as in execution. When you can submit a trade that has multiple symbols with the help of an OSO or an OCO, but at the time of execution, these would be traded as individual symbols. That is true for stocks pairs trading, futures pairs trading. The only actual pairs that we can trade are options spreads, and you can do those in OptionsStation Pro. But if you're interested in trading futures spreads, then you would have to go into Futures Plus to do that. Yes, and Jim, I see your comment there, and you just reminded me that I haven't shared that PowerPoint with the class. So if you guys give me a minute, I'm gonna pull up my media server. And then give you guys access to this PDF, all right? All right, I'm going to send it right here in the chat. And there it is. Excellent. Okay. And I think this is the last PowerPoint slide on my presentation. Yep, it is. So let's go into TradeStation and show you exactly what the PowerPoint was talking about. Let me change the symbol here to Microsoft. All right, so in order for me to add symbol, I can do it here from the Data tab. And the very first option you see at the top is add symbol. Very simple to do. All you need to do that is add symbol. I can add the symbol one more time, the same symbol, Microsoft, plot it, and now you have the two symbols on the screen. Now they're both the same, but I can change the bottom one and say, I want the bottom one to be a 30-minute time frame. Now notice how I did that. I specifically selected the candlesticks of the bottom symbol. And when I make the time frame change, it applies only to that symbol. If I skip that step, if the candlestick is not selected, let me click here in the background to remove the selection. And you change the time frame, let me show you what happens. I was going to say it would change both, but it doesn't change both. It changes the top one only by default. But let me go back here to 5 minute. And I'm going to go here back to 5 minute. If I don't click on the bottom candlesticks, if I change the time frame and I say, well, let me change the time frame to 30 minutes. You know, when both of the symbols are set to the same time frame and you select time frame here from this drop down, it applies to both. Even if you type it in, if I type in 1 minute, it applies to both time frames, which is pretty cool. Now, if you want to make them or one of them different, of course, you can click on the specific candlesticks, type in a different one, and now you can see that I have a 5 minute on the top and I have a 30 minute at the bottom. Let me go ahead and add some studies. I'm going to go to add studies. Any studies you add are going to be added to the top symbol or data one. So if I add a moving average, by default, it'll go to data one. What if I wanted to add a moving average here at the bottom? Well, I'll go to studies, add study, moving average one line. I'm going to check this box that says prompt for format so that I can make the changes to the study before it goes on the chart. When I click OK, and in the general tab is where I find the drop down for me to select the symbol that I want. I'm going to set it to symbol number 2 or data number 2, which is my 30-minute time frame. I'm going to click OK. So here you can see the values of these moving averages. You know, on a 5 minute, the moving average is 238, and on a 30 minute, the moving average is 239. So you can see that the current price of Microsoft is 237. So we're closer to the moving average on a 5 minute bar than we are on a 30 minute. But as you see, signals being generated on each one of these time frames, you can get confirmation that it's also crossing or close to crossing in different time frames. So you get confirmation across different time frames, which is an interesting concept and idea when you look at technical analysis. When you have, let me go ahead and remove these studies for now. Let me show you something else. Let me go ahead and add here Apple. I'm going to change the bottom symbol to Apple, and I'm going to also change it to 5 minutes. So now we have a 5 minute chart of Apple and a 5 minute chart of Microsoft. Let's see. Today is a down day for the market. We're down almost 700 points on the Dow. I'm looking here at the position graph bar. I want to know, starting with the opening of the day, which symbol is doing better, Apple or Microsoft? The percent change that you see right here, for example, for Microsoft is down 1.39% and Apple is down 1.86%. That percentage is calculated from the close of yesterday. We know that there's been a gap on most stocks because they're affected by the overall market conditions and they dropped. So that drop from yesterday's close is going to be, significant. But what about since the opening of today? Have any of these stocks done better than the other? That's when we talk about relative performance. How do we measure how Microsoft compares to Apple? We can do that with something called percent change chart. I'm going to go here to style and go to percent change chart and enable. This says that it's going to disable account orders and positions. That's totally fine. I'm going to say yes to continue. And what the chart does is it takes all the historical data that you've loaded In this particular case, I haven't changed the amount of historical data, but if I want to know when this starts, I click and hold and I can see that the date is September 16th. So this percent change chart is calculating how much the prices have changed since the opening of September 16th. You can see how the two lines, the green line and the yellow line, they both meet at the same point, which is, if you look over here on the right-hand side on the scale, is right at 0%. So we set both symbols to 0%. And from that point, we're going to start calculating how much the prices change on a percentage scale, which is the way that you equalize the movement of each one of these symbols. You know, we saw earlier that Microsoft was trading at, close to $300. Yeah, 237. Apple is trading at 149. So in a price scale, of course, Microsoft is going to be higher than Apple. And it's going to be tough to really measure how each one of these are moving unless we switch the prices to percentages, and then we see the magnitude of these price changes. Over here, I did say that I wanted to measure from the beginning of today. So let me scroll to the front. By the way, these percentages that you see on the far right, the negative 0.37% and the negative 2.15% are calculated from September 16th. So from the opening of September 16th, we see that which symbol? Apple is the one that is down the least. So if we were to compare Microsoft with Apple since the beginning of 9/16, yeah, we see that Apple is doing better, whereas not down as much as Microsoft, and let's not say better because it all depends on what is it that you're analyzing. You're probably looking for stocks that have dropped the most. So that could be better for you, So in this case, let's say that Apple hasn't dropped as much as Microsoft. What about from the beginning of today? Today is September 23rd. We can see the date right here at the bottom. We see this vertical dotted line that tells us when the session began. I can try to locate it right here with my vertical mouse and vertical axis. And when I have my mouse right at that vertical axis, I'm going to right click right here, go to style. I'm going to go to percent change chart and I'm going to say calculate from this bar. That sets the two starting points at 0. And take a look. If you look at the percentages, now we see an inverted behavior. Now we see that Apple has dropped more percentage-wise than Microsoft has. Microsoft has only dropped about 0.5% or 49%, whereas Apple has dropped, 0.93%, so almost a 1% since the opening price, because that's where we started off, the calculation of this percent change. So anytime you want to measure the relative performance of one symbol against another, you can create a multi-data chart like this and see how one compares to the other. How many symbols can a chart support? I think we answered that at the beginning of the presentation. We said up to 50. So in reality, if you want to measure the performance across 50 different symbols, that is something that a chart analysis would allow you to do. So pretty cool, huh? All right, so let's go ahead and I'm going to leave this running. I'm going to open up another workspace here and open up another chart. All right, so I'm going to open up a daily chart of Microsoft. I'm going to do insert symbol AAPL. Take a look at what I'm doing here, because this is a shortcut that I sometimes use to adding symbols. Yes, you can go to data and click on add symbol. It's the same feature, but here I'm using a command that is .isy. ISY is just an abbreviation for insert symbol. That's the way that you remember that it's ISY. So .isy is a command line command that pretty much does exactly that. It adds a symbol, and I just have to add a space and then the ticker for the symbol that I want to add, and that's it. As soon as I hit enter, it automatically inserts Apple onto my screen. So sometimes if you're a keyboard person, and you just want to type in the command to insert a symbol, it is .isy, comma, not comma, I'm sorry, .isy space, and then the ticker. All right. Two technology stocks, so Microsoft and Apple. I'm going to say that these two stocks, since they're both technology stocks, I'm going to assume that they are going to be correlated. And correlated, I mean that the movement of one is going to resemble the other very closely. Now, we can measure that. Sorry, we can measure that with a mathematical formula. There's a built-in study here in TradeStation that's called correlation. And correlation needs two symbols on the chart. If you try to add this indicator with only one symbol, you will get an error. So I already have the chart with two symbols, and I'm going to go to studies, add studies. And let's go here to correlation. Everybody should have this symbol. Correlation. It says prompt for editing first. So correlation, let me click OK and show you what's in the inputs. Because in the inputs, it's where you see the difference between the two tickers. You see close of data 1, which is independent data, and depth data dependent. I'm not sure what those, that's interesting. So what I'm interested in is that this is close of data 1, close of data 2. Remember that at the beginning of the presentation, I said data 1 and data 2, those are numbers that are automatically assigned depending on the order in which you add the symbols. The first symbol that starts the chart, that's always data 1. And as you add symbols, they will be assigned a data number. So Apple, in this case, would be data 2. So data 1 and data 2. Let's see, these are alerts that I can set. And this is looking at 14 bars back. Let's go ahead and click OK and see what we have here. So it's an indicator that the scale goes from +1 to -1, because that's how correlation is measured. And values that are closer to +1, it means that the two symbols are highly correlated. In fact, any symbol that reaches +1 is because the price movements are exactly the same in the calculation. Now, anything that is on the opposite side of the spectrum, anything that is -1, means that they're oppositely correlated. What does that mean? It just means that when one is shooting upward, the other one is shooting with the same magnitude downward. So oppositely correlated. And whenever the value is somewhere around 0, then there's no correlation at all. Sometimes you can see a correlation going up to, +1, giving you a clear indication of how closely correlated they are. But in certain other areas, take a look over here, there's no correlation whatsoever between what's happening to one compared to the other. So 0 is that, no correlation at all. And of course, negative is oppositely correlated. But a lot of times, when you look at correlation analysis, it's interesting that if you find two symbols that are highly correlated most of the time, and all of a sudden they become uncorrelated, that could present a trading opportunity. Most of the time, symbols that are highly correlated that become uncorrelated for a short period of time will become correlated again. So maybe that's some trading opportunities in those cases. Let's go ahead and take a look at some other symbols. So this is Microsoft and Apple. Let's see how correlated is Microsoft to AMD. So I want you guys to see how I changed the symbol. I just clicked on the candle, typed in the symbol and hit enter because I wanted to affect or change the symbol of data 2. So I wanted to remove Apple and replace it with AMD. Take a look at the correlation. I see that, towards the end of last year, it seemed like AMD and Microsoft were not correlated, but recently we have some higher correlation numbers. Does that mean anything? Probably not, but it's just a way for you to know, when symbols are moving in unison and where symbols are not, and where symbols are oppositely correlated. So let's go ahead and take a look at, for example, some futures here. I'm going to do add ES on the top, and I'm going to do add NQ at the bottom. All right, so this is add ES, add NQ. Notice how highly correlated they are. Now we know that the SPY or spiders is based on ES. So if I were to change the add NQ to SPY, then you can see how they're, of course, highly correlated. Why? Because they're both based on the same thing, the S&P 500 index. You can see how we almost have a flat line right here at 1, measuring that correlation. But it's an interesting indicator. I want you guys to take a look at it and see if you can develop some trading ideas out of it, okay? Let's see, what else can I show you here? We talked about in the PowerPoint, we had multiple examples here. We have relative performance, percent change chart, correlation analysis, which we talked about, technical analysis, multi-time frame confirmation. When you take a look at that, let's go over here. We did talk about it a little moment at the beginning when we showed Microsoft and we added a moving average. We added the moving average to a 5-minute, and we also added it to a 30-minute. You can kind of do something similar on Radarscreen. Let me show you what I do in Radarscreen to have different time frames for different stocks. So let me go here to Radarscreen. All right, I'm going to use a symbol list from ones that I've created in the past. I'm gonna use sample. I created this a while back. It just has 10 symbols. If you view the symbols, you can see that these are symbols that are part of the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ. So it's a mixture of everything. I'm gonna click OK and add those symbols right here on my screen. I'm gonna delete this row, which is row number 1. Okay, so now I have the 10 symbols. Let me remove some columns here. I'm gonna remove the bid ask, high and low. I'm gonna remove the net change. Maybe remove the description because I know what the symbols are. The time frame I'm gonna leave because that'll make much more sense once I start making these changes. Let me reduce the symbol column a little bit, squeeze this a little bit more. Last, make it here, percent change, and volume. Okay, perfect. I'm gonna add another column, which will be, let's suppose that we wanna do RSI. All right, RSI. I'm going to add it and move it down. I don't need the overbought and the oversold, so let me go to studies, remove that. I just want the RSI number because, I want the RSI calculation to be available not only on a 5-minute time frame, but also on different time frames. In fact, let's make this a daily. There we go. So we have some symbols that are oversold. Disney has an RSI value of 29, Intel 23. So on a daily time frame, let's say that we want to take a look at a higher time frame and see if that's still that holds true. So what I'm going to do, rather than creating multiple Radarscreen windows, I'm going to highlight the 10 symbols that I have here, right click, copy, and then I'm going to right click on the next available row, which is row number 11. I'm going to right click there and then click on paste. And that'll paste the exact 10 symbols that I copied. And I'm going to do that one more time. Right click and paste. So I'm pasting them 2 times. So now I have a total of 30 symbols, but the 30 symbols are repeated, each is repeated 3 times. The reason why I did that is because I want to select the second group of 10, that's from 11 all the way to 20, and I want to make those 60-minute. So just take a look that I just selected or highlighted from 11 all the way to 20, and then I went to time frame, I changed it to 60 minutes. So now you can see the separation on the interval. And then I do the rest. So from Disney, let me go, I select Disney, hold down the shift key, and then select AXP over here. And I'm going to turn that into a 30-minute. Okay, so now I have 30 symbols. Each symbol is repeated 3 times. And each symbol is on a different time frame, daily, 60 minutes, and 30 minutes. What I do next is I resize my radar screen so I'm able to see 3 different columns of symbols. And that is something that happens automatically as you resize the radar screen. I'm going to resize from the bottom edge of the radar screen, and I'm going to push it up. You can see how it automatically starts organizing the symbols in different columns. Right now I have 2. As soon as I reach this level, now it's going to go to 3 columns. Take a look, and it just keeps on happening automatically. And I want to be able to display just like that, my 10 symbols split up into 3 different columns. They are sorted in alphabetical order. I don't want to sort them in any other way, because now I can see Disney on row number 1, oversold, Disney on column number 2 at a 60-minute time frame, oversold, and then Disney on a 30-minute chart, also oversold. So I have confirmation on 3 different time frames, daily, 60-minute, and 5-minute, and 30-minute, that Disney is oversold. Is that a stronger signal that Disney has been oversold? Maybe, maybe not. But you can see, for example, the difference in other stocks. For example, Microsoft is oversold in the daily bar, but it's not oversold in the 30-minute, and it's not oversold in the 60-minute chart yet. It's still at 40. It may continue to drop and give you an oversold on those. But if you want to have a technical idea and look at how that number compares across multiple time frames, you can do it on Radarscreen by repeating the symbol over and over as many times as you need, different time frames, and then resize your Radarscreen so you can see them across the board the way that I have them here. Does it work with more symbols? Of course it does. Okay, something to keep in mind. One thing that you won't be able to do though here is change the size of this radar screen, because the symbols are automatically organized based on the size of the application. So I would just leave this radar screen the way it is, maybe create a chart, put it right there at the bottom. Maybe I just do this. There we go. And one thing that I would do is maybe link not only the symbol, but also the interval to my radar screen. That way, if I click on Disney, it not only changes the symbol of the chart, but it also changes the time frame, and we can see what happened to Disney in the past few bars. I can click on Disney here on the middle column. Now I'm looking at a 60-minute chart of Disney, and then I click on Disney here on the 3rd column. Now I'm looking at a 30-minute chart of Disney as well. So very interesting setup. Let's go here to another workspace and show you a couple more things. I'm going to go to Apps, click on Radarscreen. All right, let's go ahead and add a list of symbols. This is the NASDAQ 100. I can remove symbols or columns if I want. A lot of times I remove these 4 so that I can add more space to my radar screen. And then I click on the plus here to add more columns. There's one called relative strength. I'm going to add it, and let's push it down all the way after volume today. Now, relative strength is the type of study that uses advanced, easy language objects in order to bring in additional data streams. Take a look at the very first subcolumn. It says a reference symbol, and you see SPY in there. And this is calculating a difference in percent change based on a look back. If I right click and I go to studies and edit it, I can see that the inputs tells me that this is looking back length of 10 or 10 bars ago. Let me go ahead and click OK, because this sort of calculation makes more sense if I select the symbols and I change them to daily. You can see bigger changes. And let me remove the index itself. When you use one of these symbol lists that TradeStation provides, it includes the index symbol. I usually tend to remove that and just concentrate on the symbols. On this indicator, I also remove these two last columns because it says loaded all the way down, and this other column says 0 all the way down, and I don't need to see that. So let's go ahead and right click, studies, show hide, and I'm going to do the data state, right click, studies, show hide, and this time I want to do the 0 line. So now I'm just looking at the symbol that I'm comparing, the row symbol with. For example, right here is Apple compared to Spider, and the difference is 5.15%. Now remember that this is the difference of 10 days of price movement. What does that mean? It means that Apple has moved more than Spider. How much more? 5% more, because what you see here is the difference between the percent change. And it's not looking at this percent change, it's looking at percent change from 10 days ago. So I can add maybe that other indicator just to have an idea of what the percent change is. So let's go here to, that's going to be towards the top. There it is, percent change. I'm going to add it, put it right there before relative strength. Let's see that it's the same input as my, it's 14, so let's switch it to 10. And I don't need high alert or low alert, so let me go ahead and hide those. Same way that I did it for the other sub columns. All right, so if I have Apple right here, the percent change is 464 down. Actually, no, that's, is that up or down? I think it's down if it's red, up if it doesn't have a negative number. So let's suppose that it's up. That's an up number. I'm sure I wouldn't have colored it red, but I think it's just the default value. Let's go ahead and insert a row here. So data, add a blank row, and let's add SPY in here. So SPY, take a look at the percent change on SPY, 9.84. The percent change of Apple is 468. So what's the difference between the two? About 5.17. So that difference you see here is the difference between the percent changes of 10 days ago of two different symbols. That is interesting, right? Now, I just added SPY here so you can see where that difference is coming from. And as a positive, it's a positive difference. So the positive difference here would mean that Apple, Spider is higher than Apple. Now let's look at a negative number here. So Airbnb has a negative difference, right? 8.40. So let's go ahead and add Airbnb here. Just doubting myself here. I'm not sure why. So I'm going to go here to add a blank row. I'm going to add, well, I have Spider already up there, so I don't need to add it again. I can see that Airbnb has a price change of 18% since 10 days ago, where Spider only has 9. So Spider is below Airbnb. Okay, that's exactly what it means. So when it's positive, it's because the reference number is higher than the symbol row. And when it's negative, it's because Spider is that much lower than the reference symbol. That's exactly what that means. Let me remove this symbol and remove this blank row. So if I were to sort by the difference, it sorts in ascending number or ascending order first. You can see that a negative 17% means that Adobe is 17% lower than Spider. And if we go to the other side, we can see Netflix is higher than Spider by 8% in regards to price movement. Interesting, right? That you can bring in Spider as an additional data stream and do these types of comparisons. And it doesn't have to be Spider. That's why when you right click on the column header, you can go into the inputs and change the reference symbol. So if you want to compare, all the NASDAQ 100 against the NASDAQ itself, $NDX.X. I add the symbol, click OK, and that's going to use the index itself, because a lot of times, oh, that gave me an error. Is that a valid symbol? I believe it is. This gave me invalid operation, incorrect symbol. So let me go back in here, studies, edit symbol. Is it no X? Let's see. Oh, because it's an index. Let's go back in there. So it's not @, it's $, NDX.X. Okay, so that's the NASDAQ index. And if I were to add that same symbol here, let me go ahead and go to data and add a blank row, and I'm going to type in the symbol in there. Okay, so you can see that it's comparing the symbol to itself, and the difference is 0 because it's the same symbol. But you can see that which symbols underperform and outperform the index itself. Let me go ahead and sort by this, and you can see that, again, Adobe is underperforming the index itself. So even though I've added the 100 symbols that make up the NASDAQ 100, you want to know, which symbols are outperforming or underperforming the index. And you can see here the underperformers, double click, and you see the outperformers. These are the ones that are shining compared to the index itself. All right. All right, guys, that's some of the things that I wanted to show you. Again, if you want to take a look at the code, you're welcome to go into the easy language, edit easy language for relative strength. If I open up the code, you're going to see references. Well, you see the reference symbol, which is the input, but the piece of code that brings in the data is right here. Create and load PSP. And this is the price series provider, which brings in a symbol that is not in your Radarscreen. And this is, easy language code that can be used in Radarscreen, but it can also be used on charting as well. All right, guys, this is it. This is the information that I had for you. Thank you so much for joining me today. Hopefully the information was clear. If you guys have any questions, remember that we have Q&A sessions on Tuesdays and Fridays at 11:30. Make sure you join me and ask any questions related to the technology. But I want to say thank you for your time. Have a great weekend, everyone, and see you in my next class on Monday. So I'll post the schedule on Monday morning. So look out for the details on classes. Thank you guys for your time. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.